You can consider Hughes a pioneer, and we were a successful pioneer.
It was the most challenging thing, the most eventful and most adventurous thing that I think I've ever done.
It was outstanding, it was gorgeous, and it was really a pleasure to stay there.
They jumped up and down and were yelling, "Yay, China," and I was yelling, "Yay, USA." And we all shook hands, and we were all smiles, and it was a very happy event, very exciting.
In the spring of 1990, 60 Hughes employees found themselves in the city of Xichang in the Sichuan province of the People's Republic of China. From this unlikely setting, the Hughes Asiasat-1 launch team choreographed an unprecedented step in the world of international business relations. For the first time in history, an American contractor launched an American-made satellite from mainland China. This is the story of the people and the satellite that opened the door to a new era of Chinese-American relations.
Asiasat-1's April 7th launch aboard the Chinese Long March 3 rocket was not the first time the satellite took part in a history-making event. Originally built as Westar 6, the satellite made history on November 13, 1984, when it became one of the first satellites ever to be retrieved by space shuttle astronauts and returned to Earth. Westar 6 was sold to the Asiasat Consortium and christened Asiasat-1. After extensive testing and rework, the satellite began its trek to the People's Republic of China and its historic return to space. The Asiasat program presented the Hughes team with unique challenges at every turn.
There were two basic challenges to manage this program. One was that the spacecraft was one of the recovered spacecraft, and refurbishing that was a challenge because it was the first time. And the second, probably more bigger challenge is we launched out of China. The challenge there was that the Chinese government, the United States government, we had a lot of requirements placed on us. Logistics, export licenses, information transfer, all those things made the job very challenging.
The key issue is technology transfer to a communist country. This was a very large task to get the licenses approved. Ultimately required President Bush's signature to give final approval for this launch to occur.
President Bush did not sign the agreement until December, and the launch was in March and April. So it really was not certain until December. Now, of course, before that then was the Tiananmen Square occurrence, which was a very unfortunate situation. But we had worked to get ready prior to Tiananmen Square. At that point, it certainly looked like it was really not going to happen at all.
Meeting these unusual historical, political, and technological constraints required years of careful planning.
We had been leading toward launches in China since about 1985-86. I was asked to look after the possibility of launching in China, to explore the technical feasibility. In other words, would we be able to do it or not? We explored that on some early programs, and that worked up to the first launch being the Asiasat that actually took place. Chinese had launched many launch vehicles before this, but this was very important to them to develop a technological credibility in front of the world, and that's what the main goal they were really looking for out of this launch.
Deciding what to take to a new and distant land presented the Asiasat team with another challenge.
It was a problem getting things packed to begin with because we had to pack so much to make sure we had materials for every contingency, anything that we could think of that would happen, because it takes too long to get stuff from the States, and we were told once you get there, you don't get anything. So if you think you're going to need it, you better take it.
Finally, the necessary preparations were complete. Asiasat-1 was crated and loaded onto a 747 for its flight to China. The launch team's first taste of China was the capital city of Beijing.
Beijing was very interesting. When I first landed, we didn't know what to expect. First thing you notice is all the people.
The Chinese treated us to a tour of the Great Wall. That was exciting. I mean, it's the most popular tourist thing that you can do in China, and they made sure that we did that.
The Great Wall was very impressive. Went, I think where most people went, north of Beijing, but it's quite a structure, and to think that it goes for, I think, 1,500 miles or something like that is absolutely amazing.
The city was kind of old-fashioned, but the people were exciting, and the sights. Well, I didn't really get to see as much as I wanted to. There's so much to see there. You could spend weeks there and really not see everything.
I think the biggest surprise was pulling into Beijing. The hotel that we stayed in Beijing, the Palace, was, it must be a 15-star hotel. It was outstanding, it was gorgeous, and it was really a pleasure to stay there. We were told, however, by our ops manager, don't get used to it because what you're going to see when you get to Xichang is the opposite end of the spectrum, and it was.
The city of Xichang is located about 6,000 feet above sea level in one of the most rural provinces in south-central China. The surrounding environment with its hot springs, lake, and miles of mountain trails offered excellent opportunities for outdoor recreation. The launch site itself is located about 45 miles north of the city. The arrival of Asiasat 1 provided the people of Xichang with their first look at a 747. The first order of business was to transport the satellite to the launch facility. As the curious people of Xichang watched, the satellite crates were loaded onto trucks and caravaned through the mountain terrain.
Hours later, with the satellite safely in storage, the team began to modify the satellite processing facility to meet Hughes requirements. Each member of the team, regardless of job description, pitched in to make the area ready for work to begin. As they unpacked their gear, the Hughes team quickly became aware that the Chinese way of working was different from what most Americans are accustomed to.
Their idea of crane wiring and our idea of crane wiring is different. We use cranes to move our spacecraft, and we have sensitive controls that we use to operate the crane to lift the spacecraft around. Or their idea of wiring is to hand wrap wires around bare lugs and not tighten them. Our concept is to use spade lugs and bolts and things like that to hold everything together. So we had to do some of this rewiring, get the approval from our U.S. government friends who didn't want technology transfer, and then go ahead and do it.
The Chinese, you know, in relation to us, are very labor intensive. In China, it takes, 10 people to do the job of one person because, well, they've got so many people. They have to have employment for everybody. It's amazing to see the hierarchy of command there and the amount of people it takes to get a job done.
But it was not all work for the Hughes team. Leisure time found them exploring the surrounding countryside and shopping in the tiny downtown area. Although they didn't completely understand the Americans, the people of Xichang opened their hearts and homes to the foreigners from the West.
They were very friendly. They treated us very well, very nice. And those that we come across at times that could speak English, they would have a conversation, try to have a conversation with them, use their English on you. And we enjoyed talking with them and communicating with them. It was enjoyable, very eventful.
The people, I would say, were very warm, very curious, and they were learning from your actions, your movements. I would say that the Chinese couldn't have been any better toward us as guests in their country. They were very polite, very helpful, willing to help you in any way. They're a race of people who, to them, pride is very important.
There was an old man there and a woman, and they had 7 children. He was expecting an 8th, and he asked us to have lunch with him. He was very old. He looked very old. He might have only been 45 or 50. It's a very harsh life out there. But he didn't know us from Adam, and our translator was having problems talking to him because he was one of the mountain people and the dialects are different. But the gist of it was, stay and have lunch. I've never seen people like you. You're the very first foreigners I've ever seen in my whole life. Stay and have lunch with us. And, I thought that was a pretty neat thing to do because it's not something you'd see done here in the United States.
The weeks passed. The time for planning and learning was over. As the world turned its eyes to the little city of Xichang, the Chinese and the Americans anxiously awaited their final step into history.
240 10分钟准备10分钟准备先报道我们比对一下调度层面值5分钟准备各号注意5分钟准备1分钟准备1分钟准备天动天动开拍开拍点火点火2标是3公分后3秒8秒2秒
It was the most prettiest thing you ever saw in the world.
It was a total success. They jumped up and down and were yelling, "Yay, China," and I was yelling, "Yay, USA." And we all shook hands, and we were all smiles, and it was a very happy event, very exciting.
Tonight's launch is an historic event. For the first time, an American-built satellite was launched on a Chinese-built rocket, and this is history. Many problems needed to be solved. Language differences, cultural barriers, communications problems, logistics problems, technical problems. And we wish to thank the enormous effort of all the Chinese agencies that participated in solving their problems. Through goodwill and cooperation, today's launch was a tremendous success, and we thank you and we compliment you for your professional performance. Now all that remains is verification that the satellite is in the correct orbit and working properly, and that process will start over the next hour and a half. I hope that this launch, tonight's launch, is the beginning of a long-term Chinese-American collaboration in space and the basis for continued improvement in the relationships between the peoples of our two countries. Thank you.
It was a real nice launch. It was nice to have everybody there that worked with you to get, to that point. Of course, there are people back here in El Segundo that worked on it as well, but these guys were involved in the final build, the final hassles. Most of them worked on the satellite, through its life and integration.
It's something to be so proud of when you're there and see how proud the world is of her. And the Chinese, to the Chinese, Hughes is #1.
The success of the Asiasat launch can be attributed to the unselfish, dedicated teamwork of the entire Asiasat team.
Everybody worked as a unit, as a team. Everybody got along great.
Pulling together as a team, their morale was extremely high, and here they were, just walking, working, teaming through one relation to another relation, one adverse condition to another adverse condition, and really just adapting to the Chinese way of life for the most part. And that was very impressive.
Everybody was very helpful. The whole launch team worked together, and I think it really created a team effort.
We formed a bond that started from the first moment that I, came off the plane. And it was all about doing whatever the job called for. Whatever was necessary, we did it. If it was a 12-hour day or 18-hour day, you did it. Because the unity that's formed among 68 people was formed out of a desire to want to have the best and make this a total success, not one day out of the week, but 7 days out of the week. We all had the same dream, the same mutual goal. There was no way we were going to go there and fail, no matter what it took. The team, the launch is something that the company Hughes should be very proud of. You couldn't have asked for a better job. And as far as ever returning, oh, I'd love to go back.
People were outstanding people. They pulled together to get the job done. Not only were you proud to be a Hughes employee, I think at that point you were proud to be an American.
With the launch of Asiasat 1, Hughes has again made its mark in the annals of history. By orchestrating the recovery, refurbishment, and relaunch of the Asiasat satellite, the people of Hughes Space and Communications Group have made a difference in the lives of over 2 billion of the world's citizens. The Hughes Asiasat launch team opened the door for a new provider of international satellite launch services and blazed a clear path to success for those that follow. The Asiasat launch, opening a door, making a difference.